Hello friends, this video on structural organization of animals part 9 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we will talk about the next type of tissue, that is connective tissue. The first thing that comes to our mind is, what is a connective tissue? The name connective, it is going to connect something. And yes, you are right. That is what it does. The basic function of connective tissue is to connect things, connect different parts of the body. So that is the purpose of connective tissue. So it connects and holds the body together. So if you look at human beings, what is it that connects the body together? Our head. What would happen if you separate out the different parts of the body? Head is one portion of the body. Legs are different parts. Again, hands are different part. Your chest is different part. So there is something which is actually connecting all the parts of the body together. And this something is nothing but your connective tissue. This is the most diverse of all animal tissue types. The 4 types of tissue which I told you, one is the epithelial tissue, which we already discussed, connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. Out of these 4 types of tissue, the most diverse is the connective tissue. What do I mean by diverse? Diverse is diversity. What do you mean by diversity? Variety. So why am I saying that connective tissue has a lot of variety or a lot of diversity? It's because when you talk about the connective tissue, you will see that something like blood, which is a fluid flowing throughout the body, is a connective tissue. Whereas something like a bone, which is so hard, right? It is as hard as, it is so hard that it can form the structure of the entire body. Even that is a connective tissue. And if you think of a bone and blood, do you feel that they both are similar? No, right? Because we feel that they're 2 different things, but both of them are connective tissue, because the common thing between them is that they are trying to connect different parts of the body, and that is why both are categorized as connective tissue. And this is the reason why connective tissue is said to be the most diverse tissue type, because here we can find many variety of examples under this connective tissue. So it basically acts as a glue, forming the framework of the entire body. So it is not only in case of human beings, but I'm talking about all animals. So everywhere you have connective tissue, which is forming the framework of the body. Okay. So talking about connective tissues, what are the connective tissues which are present in an organism? Blood, bone, tendons. So what are tendons? We'll see it very soon. Tendon is something like, inside our body we have so many things, right? We have bones, we have muscles. So tendon is something which connects a bone to a muscle. We have ligaments. What are ligaments? Again, it is a structure which connects a bone to another bone. So bone to bone connection is done by ligament, and bone to muscle connection is done by tendons. Cartilage. So these are some of the examples of connective tissues. Now, as we'll see the structure of connective tissue and all those things. After that, we'll talk about types of connective tissue. So all these examples of connective tissue will fall somewhere in those types of connective tissue. And then we'll discuss them in detail. So let us talk about the structure and composition of connective tissue. Cells forming the connective tissue are widely spaced. So now it is very unlike to what we talked about in case of epithelial tissue. In epithelial tissue, the intercellular space was very less or almost absent, because we wanted it to be the boundary with no leakage. So no spaces between the cells. So we had the junctions, cell junctions there. But here in case of connective tissue, it is not like that. They are quite widely spaced. So you have a lot of intercellular space here, because they are not the boundary. They are just going to connect stuffs, right? Now the intercellular spaces are filled with a dense fluid-like structure, which is called intercellular or extracellular matrix. And this matrix is going to play a very important role in the function of connective tissue. So as I said, between 2 cells, lot of space is there. But that space is not empty. In that space, a very thick fluid-like structure is present, which is called matrix, intercellular matrix or extracellular matrix. Suppose this is one cell, this is another cell. This is the empty space. So here you have matrix. This is called intercellular because it is between two cells. It is called extracellular because it is outside the cell. If you think of this cell, it is outside the cell. Think of this cell outside the cell. So basically it is extracellular. Again, if you think it in this way, that it is in between the two cells, then it is intercellular. So basically intercellular and extracellular mean the same thing. So this is how they look like. So here you can see the different cells in blue color, and this purple colored dense fluid is nothing but your extracellular matrix. Now here the cells of a connective tissue are embedded in this matrix, and the nature of this matrix varies with different types of connective tissue depending upon its function, and that is why the structure of connective tissues are so very different. For example, if you talk about blood has a certain type of function to perform. It has to transport nutrients, water and everything throughout the body. So it has to be a fluid-like structure. So that structure depends, so the kind of extracellular matrix blood has will be very different from the type of extracellular matrix which bone will have. So the nature of the matrix will vary with different types of connective tissue. Now, this extracellular matrix is composed of ground substance and fibers. So, this extracellular substance also is made up of two things. One is ground substance and the next is fibers. So, here you can look at the picture. So, this is your epithelial tissue, right? So, what is this pink colored line? It is nothing but your basement membrane which separates epithelial tissue from connective tissue. And in this layer of connective tissue, you have some cells which are marked in dark color. So these are the cells of the connective tissue, and the middle portion is filled with the matrix. Right? Now, this matrix has some thin hair-like structures. So these hair-like structures are the fibers. And other than fibers, all other space is filled with ground substance. So basically, ground substance fills space between cells and fibers. So anything which you see except the cells and the fibers is nothing but the ground substance. It has high water content, and because of its high water content, the matrix has a fluid-like structure. Fibers, again, these are the thin hair-like structures. They are formed of proteins. Now, three types of fibers are secreted by connective tissue. So, whenever we talk about fibers, there will be three types of fibers: collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and elastic fibers. So, these are the three types of fibers which are present in the extracellular matrix of connective tissue. Right? So, the structure of connective tissue is now clear. There will be a lot of intercellular space. That intercellular space is known as matrix. Matrix is made up of fibers and ground substance. Fibers again are of three types: collagen, reticular and elastin. And all the space except the cell and the fiber is filled with ground substance, which has very high water content. So this was all about the structure of connective tissue. Now let us talk about the different types of fibers which I just told: collagen, elastin and reticular. So what are collagen fibers? This is the most common fibers. Now, just to remind you, all these fibers are nothing but they are all proteins. Now, again, proteins are made up of amino acids. So there can be many types of proteins depending upon the way the amino acids are connected to each other, right? So the composition will be different for different proteins. This is the most common. It is flexible with high tensile strength. So flexibility is there, at the same time it has good strength. It is found in bones, tendons, dermis of skin, etc. These are the places where you can see collagen fibers. The next is reticular fibers, which are arranged in mesh-like pattern. That is something like a sieve, a mesh-like pattern. They have high sugar content. We find them at the boundary of connective tissue, nerve and muscle cells. So these are some of the areas where we find reticular fibers. Elastic fibers, thin fibers, arranged in branching pattern, supports to cope with stretch and distension and thus prevents tearing. Now, since they, as the name suggests, they are elastic fibers, they have a lot of elasticity, so they can prevent tearing because they are capable of bending and stretching. So that means it can prevent tearing. So that is elastic fibers. Now, are you able to get some idea why fibers are present inside connective tissue? Now, looking at the examples which I cited for connective tissue, something like bone, tendons, ligament, you would have heard, right? People say that he met with, he was doing exercise in some inappropriate way and he had a tear in his ligament. His ligament got teared off. Things like that happen, right? So that means all examples of connective tissue, all of them have some fibers or the other because they are the connecting parts of the body. Correct? So if there is something that happens, maybe stretching or some physical anomaly, there are chances that they can tear or they can break, right? So these fibers are the ones which are responsible for the flexibility or the rigidity of these kind of tissues. Okay, so with this basic knowledge on the different types, thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.